Hello, everyone, and welcome to our show today. I want to do a nice welcome to all of our ISM members, our chapter partners, to all our guests to our show today. This program is hosted by ISM New Jersey, and I am the Executive Director, Kathy Perna. Today, we will be featuring a special presentation on how to become the leader everyone wants to work for. And we would like to hear from you, so please be sure to ask your questions using the chat or the Q&A area. Our speaker for today is Dr. Andrea Veech, who is the executive coach certified by the International Coaching Federation and the owner of Leadership Beach LLC. At Leadership Beach, she helps leaders discover how to demonstrate behaviors to increase their effectiveness and expand their self-awareness to improve their leadership function. At this time, I will turn the program over to Andrea.
Thank you, Kathy. All right, well, today we are going to be looking at how to become the leader that everyone wants to work for. So let's start with what is effective leadership. We're going to move into the 4 competencies and what behaviors, what does it look like to demonstrate the 4 competencies? And then I'll offer some takeaways at the end of the presentation. All right, so let's take a look at the current state of leadership. Right now, 71% of executives say that employee engagement is critical to their company's success. Yet the Gallup organization has reported that only 15% of employees worldwide are engaged. And by engagement, we mean the level of employees' psychological investment in their organization. It's important to understand how vital leadership is. An employee's manager is the primary and most career-impacting person, and yet 77% of organizations report that leadership is lacking. 19% of workers rate their mental health as fair or poor, which causes $47.6 billion in unplanned absences. 44% of workers report experiencing significant stress in the previous day in their work, and 20% reported anger or sadness the previous day. We all know that old saying that people leave managers, not jobs. Research has found that 38 to 50% of people do that because of their manager, but I really believe that that number is higher. When you think about why someone leaves a job, they quit and they go do the same thing someplace else. It really is about their manager or the culture of the group that they're in. And an American Psychological Association survey of workers found that 80+% reported how their employer supports their mental health is an important consideration when they're looking for work. If you Google "my boss is," these are the top searches that come up when people are looking for information. My boss is gaslighting me, a micromanager, passive aggressive, toxic, not fun in any language. My boss is incompetent or a control freak. Sounds terrible. So let's look at what effective leadership is. It's not enough to say that someone is a good leader or a bad leader. It doesn't really say anything about their effectiveness as a leader. So to understand what effectiveness is, it's a process where a person influences others by structuring task-related activities. So the functional side of leadership, how we get work done. But they do it by facilitating interpersonal relationships in their group to achieve shared goals or a vision for the future. Basically, it's observable behaviors that demonstrate that this leader is someone that produces desired results. They are able to inspire other people to get things done. It's definitely not a walk on the beach. It's hard work, and it takes commitment and psychological strength, intellectual, technical, social, and relational competence. So in full transparency, some of you may know my husband. Brad is the Senior Director of IT Sourcing at Walmart. And he's been my professional guinea pig for 10 years. And I refined my strategies and developed my program on him, actually. And the bottom line is this stuff really works. And he's proof that it does. So this was last year's employee engagement survey results. and he got 100% from every person that reports to him. He has, I believe, 12 to 15 direct reports in a very diverse team, and they all felt that he was responsive. They feel their work there makes a difference. They're an important part of the team. Their ideas and suggestions count. Their supervisor gave them effective performance feedback, and their direct supervisor practices values and behaviors. And they feel free to be themselves at work every day and felt that someone at work takes a supportive role in my growth and development. It is rare to find 100% on the employee feedback survey. He's gotten his results for this year, and he got 96% this year because someone gave him a 4 instead of 5 on an item that he really didn't have a lot of control over, but nothing to complain about at 96%. So how does he do it? The four competencies of effective leadership encompass the behaviors that employees want and need from leaders. So if you look at the graphic and look at the green circles, that is the population of people that could become leaders. It's basically everyone. We all have a brain, we have a nervous system. Our biology helps us to function in the workplace. We all have relationship experiences. We all have life experience, and we all have a personality. The people that take time to develop themselves in those areas develop intellectual competence, relational competence, technical competence, and social competence. In the middle, the orange oval is the person that is balanced in all 4 areas of competence. The old argument of whether leaders are born or made, this model covers both, that it's nature, our biology, our personality, and it's nurture, our relationship experience and life experience that makes us effective leaders. So these are behaviors of effective leaders. It's important to understand the things that you do are what build your leadership brand, and you cannot build your brand on what you're going to do. No one knows your intentions but you. It is so important to demonstrate these things so that people see what you're doing and understand why you're doing it. They may not have all of the background, but they interpret your behavior as a way that is helping them and helping the organization to be successful. So let's dig into each competency a little deeper and see what each of these look like. So intellectual competence is our first one, and it's comprised of 4 sections. Fluid intelligence is our ability to cope in novel environments. It is half of what we measure when we measure IQ. And fluid intelligence involves our ability to abstractly think and reason, solve problems, perceive relationships or patterns that are independent from prior learning or experience. It's all about how you function in a situation where you don't have established knowledge. Cognitive flexibility is another part. So cognitive flexibility is the ability to adapt thinking to new problems or situations. Rigid thinking has been the downfall of many leaders. And we've all had that leader of, this is how we do things here. And it limits innovation and new ideas and possibilities. It can be developed by maintaining curiosity and openness to new experience, information, and possibilities. The triarchic theory of intelligence developed by Dr. Sternberg offers 3 types of intelligence: practical, creative, analytical intelligence. Practical intelligence is a person's ability to create plans and execute them, solve vague problems, and apply intellect to complete tasks, achieve positive results, and succeed in a functional way. Practical intelligence could also be referred to as common sense. It is an intellect that is just natural. Creative intelligence is the ability to think of solutions that may not currently exist. It's a person that's able to see outside the box, to come up with innovative ideas and possibilities that just don't exist currently. Analytical intelligence is the type that we typically measure on IQ tests. It is a person that's able to see the pieces of a problem and find solutions others may not see patterns in data, see patterns in behavior. It is being able to analyze information in a way that is higher than average. And then practical wisdom is the fourth part of intellectual competence. And practical wisdom is defined as doing the right thing at the right time for the right reason. So when we look at behaviors of intellectually competent leaders, what does it look like? They think critically and use reason and emotion to solve problems. It's important that intellectually competent leaders function in their dominant type of intelligence, whether it's practical, creative, or analytical. They also work with coworkers to help balance out what may not be their dominant style. So having a creative person, if you're an analytical person, having a practical person, you all work together to share knowledge and to come up with ideas that others don't. It's just not possible to be able to do all three in a top tier kind of way. We need each other to really demonstrate intellectual competence. They remain cognitively flexible and they develop practical wisdom. And they're not afraid of others' knowledge and skill, and they understand there is so much to learn, which keeps them intellectually humble. So behaviors of intellectually competent procurement leaders are more specialized. How do you use your intellect as a competent procurement leader? So intellectually competent procurement leaders give themselves opportunities to think, reflect, and process information. In today's world, there's so much coming at us. If we don't take time to think, we're not going to be able to see those patterns. We're not going to be able to analyze that data. We're going to miss opportunities to be more effective. They read negotiation literature and articles. They ask relevant questions and listen carefully to responses to learn new things, not just from their team, but from their peers, executives, suppliers. There's so many opportunities to learn. They rely on input from the experts on their team to provide valuable information to stakeholders and leadership. And they know the difference between a tactical and strategic game plan and when to use each most effectively. Technical competence is our second competence. It involves having and using crystallized intelligence. Crystallized intelligence is the other half of what we measure when we assess IQ. So our fluid intelligence and crystallized intelligence comes together to give us one IQ score. And IQ has been shown to be the best predictor of leadership effectiveness, but we separate it into these two areas because you use them very differently. With crystallized intelligence, it's the ability to use information that you've already learned and stored in long-term memory. Crystallized intelligence develops throughout our lifetime and it strengthens with age. Being technically competent involves being a reliable source of information. You have deep expertise in your area of responsibility and a wealth of knowledge and experience. You're able to share knowledge, and if we can't teach or share what we don't know, we have to be able to learn. We have to add to that crystallized intelligence. We also support others' expertise. We provide training and development for direct reports and others. And most importantly, we get out of the way. When someone is more of an expert than we are, as a leader, it's important to step aside, let that person shine, and let them demonstrate their expertise. So technically competent leaders have a deep expertise in their areas of responsibility. They value learning to stay relevant, and they have the ability to teach other people. They support others' development of technical competence and are not threatened by others' technical expertise. Behaviors of technically competent procurement leaders are especially, they're unique. I think that as procurement leaders, you have to learn continuously. This field is changing every day, and staying on top of what's happening is so important. Market trends, their suppliers' portfolio, current sales tactics, leadership methodologies. We know every day there's something new. They make training and development a top priority for themselves and their team, and they stay current in their knowledge of business trends to maintain a competitive advantage. And a really important thing to do is to attend procurement conferences and stay active in procurement communities. The idea sharing and networking that happens is priceless. Social competence is our third, and that involves trust, fairness, dignity, and respect. So building and maintaining trust with direct reports, peers, executives, internal customers, external customers. It's so important to demonstrate these things every day. Emotional intelligence is another part of social competence, and I really feel like emotional intelligence needs a new name. It's kind of gotten a little cliche and really misunderstood. It's been promoted as an ability to understand how someone else feels, and that truly isn't possible. Until someone tells you how they feel, you're not going to know how they feel. It's really about being aware of your emotions and how they affect your behavior, and how other people experience you through your behavior and emotions. And the last part is your personality. Everyone has a light side and a dark side to their personality. And social competence is about presenting the best side of yourself. So on this page, there are 350 personality traits, and they've been separated into the light side and the dark side of personality. And when you think about you or your direct reports, taking these lists and highlighting which ones represent you the best. It's super important to be self-aware and understand which side are you falling on? Which ones do you use the most? How do you interact with people, and how do they perceive you from a personality perspective? We need to stay on the light side as much as possible. It's not possible to totally avoid the dark side. We're going to have a bad day now and then, but just to operate from that place, it really is hard on your leadership brand. So social behaviors of socially competent leaders involve being highly self-aware. We have to know ourselves. We have to know our strengths and weaknesses. We have to manage our emotions and others' emotional experience with us. And by that, I mean paying attention to how you're being perceived or received in the moment. I think it's pretty obvious when others are getting irritated, upset, happy, content. It shows on their face. Our body language speaks volumes, and we need to be paying attention to how others are receiving us. Creating psychological safety is a top priority of socially competent leaders. Psychological safety is creating that culture and that environment where employees do not have to be afraid to speak up, to challenge, that we create an environment that new ideas or even criticism is welcome, and let people contribute in a way that's healthy. I think it's kind of gotten a bit confusing. Radical candor is part of psychological safety, and some people have adopted that as a way to be able to just say anything. And that just isn't helpful. It also involves being respectful and kind and yet saying what needs to be said. There's a delicate balance in creating psychological safety. Socially competent leaders trust their team and themselves, and they are ethical, fair, and respectful, and they tend to operate more from the light side of their personality. So socially competent procurement leaders build trust with their teams and coworkers, as well as keep connections at suppliers. It is very important not to treat suppliers like they owe you something, or it is a battle that we're going to go fight out this negotiation. You need to have trust and relationships with key connections as well. They work with your team to be a trusted advisor to their organization. Procurement has so much to offer to help organizations be more successful, not just buying the right products, but also cost savings, avoidance, the things that really make a difference in the bottom line. They're able to manage up and across their organization. As people move up into executive positions, they have more and more categories underneath them. And effective leaders are able to manage up by keeping executives informed, because they're just not able to keep up with all the details that are happening in all the categories in their organization. They understand and abide by ethical principles and practices. They don't accept trips, gifts, or kickbacks from suppliers. It's outside of policy in most organizations, and it undermines their ability to negotiate effectively. They de-escalate conflict and give their direct reports a place to vent within boundaries and without attempting to solve their problem. They also celebrate accomplishments and achievements. They recognize and reward excellence on their team. Nothing is demotivating more than working really hard and no one cares. They maintain appropriate boundaries in interpersonal relationships as well. Relational competence is our last competence, and relational competence is what sets apart Leadership Beach. We focus on helping leaders understand attachment theory. Attachment theory is a 70-year-old psychological theory of development, and it's an innate behavioral system. It's the lens through which we see relationships. It's why we say that leadership begins in childhood. It helps us understand how we see ourselves, how we see others, and what we expect in relationships. Our attachment theory develops in childhood, very, very early on in our lives. Our childhood caregivers or caring adults like daycare providers, teachers, pastors, counselors, those people help us develop our attachment system. As we grow up and move into adulthood, our intimate partner and our workplace leaders are attachment figures. Attachment figures are the people in our lives that really affect our well-being, our sense of survival. When you think about the people that truly influence your well-being, it is your intimate partner, your workplace leader, the people that are most able to influence how you feel about yourself. Decades of research have shown that each style is fairly consistent throughout one's life, but with focused effort, we are able to change our attachment style. So what I would like for you to think of when it comes to attachment is a spectrum. At each end of the spectrum, we have anxious attachment or avoidant attachment. People tend to develop anxious attachment when they've had a caregiver who provided inconsistent care. Sometimes their caregiver was responsive and warm, but other times they were unavailable or unsafe. They tend to be highly emotional and attempt to control others to get their needs met. They have this sense of, I'm not okay, but you're okay, and I need you to help me be okay. And it causes them to try to control, to try to get their needs met. The other end of the spectrum is avoidant attachment. People who experience a caregiver who was cold or detached or unavailable because of death or illness. Their physical, psychological, or emotional needs were not met. And they tend to avoid relationships, and they have low trust and they're emotionally unresponsive. They have this sense of, I'm okay, but you're not okay. People have let them down. They've been hurt. They've been just basically abandoned in some cases. And they've learned they don't rely on anyone else but themselves. So when we measure attachment, what we're looking for is having low scores in both anxious and avoidant attachment styles. And we consider those people to have secure attachment. So people with a secure attachment style experienced a caregiver who was warm and responsive and available when they were children and into adulthood. They form relationships that are psychologically safe with reliable people. They're comfortable in relationships or alone. They have a sense that I'm okay and you're okay. When we translate that into the workplace, we have three styles of leadership: relational leadership. Reserved leadership is associated with that avoidant attachment style. Regulating leadership is associated with the anxious attachment style, and relational leadership is associated with the secure attachment style. The behaviors that I have listed here on the screen have been found through research of leaders and followers, and how they are perceived and the behaviors that they demonstrate in each style. So you can see on the reserved leader, they have a positive model of self, but a negative model of others. They tend to avoid close relationships. They tend to spend their time working. It's where they find success and feel safe because they don't have to rely on other people a lot. The regulating leader, they have a negative model of self and a positive model of others. They're overly dependent on others. They have a hard time regulating their emotions because they really didn't have anyone in childhood teach them how to do it consistently. It's that inconsistent caregiving that sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not. And they have not been able to learn how to manage themselves through that process. The middle section is the relational leader. They have a positive model of self and others. They're comfortable with intimacy and autonomy. They have high ratings of work success and low performance fears and worries. They see themselves as likable and they see others as available and receptive. They tend to form healthy relationships and are able to function well in that space. So let's do a little case study of relational competence. We're going to look at 3 head coaches in the NFL. So from an anxious attachment or regulating leadership style, we're going to take a look at Urban Meyer. He's the former Jacksonville Jaguars head coach. He was hired January 14th of 2021. He had no NFL experience, but he had won 3 championships with Ohio State. At his first staff meeting, he revealed that he didn't know who NFL superstars like Aaron Donald and Deebo Samuels is. He hired his friend Chris Doyle from Iowa, and that lasted 48 hours because as soon as the hiring announcement came out, Doyle was accused of racism and bullying by Iowa players, and so he was fired. He let Tim Tebow try out for a roster spot as a tight end, even though Tebow hadn't played for 6 years in the NFL and he wasn't a quarterback. He surrounded himself with people that he was comfortable with, that he knew he could influence, or control. And he insulted, belittled, and demeaned scouts, players, and coaches. And he even kicked the kicker during warmups before a game. Meyer was fired hours later with a 2-11 record and only 11 months on the job. One of his players, DJ Chark, said, "I feel like he put us in a very bad position. And when questions came, he deferred the responsibility, which made it look like we were being the worst team in the league. But we weren't put in a position to succeed." He told us from day one that he was going to maximize our value. And I truly can't tell you one player that maximized their value on the Jags this year. I am happy to report that after he was fired, that Doug Peterson became the current coach. And it has been amazing this season to see how the Jags have turned things around. They actually made it to the second level of the playoffs this year after being 2-11 last year. So our other coach that we're going to look at is Bruce Arians, the former Tampa Bay Buccaneers head coach. And he has an avoidant attachment or reserved leadership style. He had 28 assistant coaches, and there are only 24 starting players, 11 offense, 11 defense, and 2 kickers. There's a football team has a 53-man roster, which means that there was 1 coach for every 2 players. It means that his players really didn't have access to him. They had to go through another coach before they could even get close to Arians. Arians spent most of his time with the quarterbacks on the practice field. He was the quarterback coach for the Indianapolis Colts during Peyton Manning's rookie season. In the fourth quarter of a game against the Patriots, Peyton threw 3 interceptions. He begged Arians to take him out. Arians said, "F no, get back in there. We'll go no huddle and maybe you'll learn something." He was not able to respond at all to Peyton's sense of fear and uncertainty and feeling threatened. And that avoidant style or that reserved leadership style just left him kind of hanging out there and being miserable. Our last coach is Sean McVay of the Los Angeles Rams. They are the 2021 Super Bowl champions. And there was a show on the NFL Network called We, Not Me. And that was the motto of the team last year. And so the videos that they showed of the players interacting with McVay, one of them said, "You feel good when you're around him. He joins the team together." And as a player came off the field in another section of the video, in a game, McVay said, "Great decision. Love you, buddy." Just really warm excitement. I mean, if you watch the game, you understand he's also intense and wants to win. And it is this great balance of support, but direction and purpose in why they're there to do what they do. He was standing behind Matthew Stafford, the quarterback of the team, watching receivers practice. And he slaps him on the shoulder and he says, "I trust what you see, bro," and he walks away. And then they didn't win a game in November last year, and the media wrote the Rams off. But McVay said he never felt that from the players. The best thing you can do when you have the right players is trust and give them autonomy. And I think that applies in the workplace as well. We're going to have tough times and we're going to have things that don't go according to plan. But when you trust and give people the autonomy to do their best, we have amazing results. So relationally competent leaders put effort into knowing their direct reports, peers, and executives. The people who tend to be more reserved or regulating, they manage the emotional discomfort they initially experience when getting to know their coworkers to allow the relationship to develop. It really is about the ability to manage the anxiety that we feel when we have that type of leadership style. They eliminate avoidance or cold and distant interactions with their team, or over-reliance or micromanaging of others. They're curious about their team and coworkers and show others they are interested and focused on others' well-being. Relational leaders present themselves as someone their team can count on in good times and bad. So relationally competent procurement leaders, they reach out to internal customers to leverage their connections to pave the way for their procurement team to get their job done. An example of that in my life is living with a procurement person that's still chasing signatures at midnight on December 31st. He's had leaders that haven't gone before him to pave the way so that he doesn't have to work on New Year's Eve to finish a deal. They're engaged enough to understand the projects their team members are working on at a high level. You don't need to be in the weeds. They're already in the weeds doing the work. You just need to be able to answer questions or simply be present at meetings to pass on information that your team needs. They listen to their direct reports and are able to respond appropriately to their fear, uncertainty, or perceived threat to their well-being and psychological safety. And I think we all know that the workplace is full of fear, uncertainty, and threats. And so we have to present ourselves as leaders as someone who can manage that and be there and be that secure base and safe harbor to our people. And they're a champion for their team to help others in the organization understand the value of the procurement team. So why does being effective matter? The statistics show that 50 to 65% of leaders fail in the first 18 months. What that means is they got off to a bad start and they just didn't know how to pull themselves out of this downward spiral. 60 to 75% of employees in any organization, in any role, at any time, report that the worst part of their job is their supervisor. And 69% of leaders report that they are uncomfortable communicating with their direct reports. Is it any wonder that employees are miserable, that they feel like the worst part of their job is their supervisor when they don't even want to talk to them? Effectiveness improves productivity, employee engagement and satisfaction, retention, psychological safety, how you see yourself and how you see others. It gives you confidence based on performance. You feel competent, you're able to communicate, you are able to build relationships, and your social function is also better. So takeaways from our time today, the 4 competencies of effective leadership, you need to be balanced in all 4 competencies. To get stuck in some of them, whether you're relying on your intellect and your technical experience to be a leader, you're missing out on the social and relational side. You need both. People want to respect you for what you know and can do, but they want to feel connected to you and know that you care and that you're going to be there when they need you from a relational perspective. Understand what it looks like to demonstrate all 4 competencies in your organization. That's unique for every company, every role, every leader, and teams are all so unique. And so it is very important to understand, what does it look like to be effective in all 4 competencies in your role? That you must have observable behaviors. If people cannot see you do it, you're not going to get credit for it. Work with an executive coach to increase your effectiveness. Seek feedback from trusted others to refine your effectiveness. And the bottom line is, every day is a practice. You need to practice each of the competencies in the appropriate time so that you get comfortable with it and it becomes second nature to you. It's how Brad got 100% on his feedback, that it's just who he is now. And to understand why effectiveness matters, everything you want to accomplish involves people. Work is only done because of people. You must demonstrate all 4 competencies to be most effective. I worked for a guy many years ago. He was a director and he was just a great guy. Everybody loved him. He was socially and relationally competent, but he wasn't the most intellectually and technically competent. And he drove his managers crazy with indecision and changing his mind all the time, being unsure, not being confident. They were all over the place. And in the end, some of his best managers moved on because they just couldn't handle the inconsistency of his leadership. Being balanced will allow you to deal with imperfect information and uncertainty better, which will allow you to make better decisions, feel competent in your expertise, and be able to know who you need to count on and have relationships with those people to solve problems. You will be trusted, respected, and have immense credibility when you work to increase your competence daily. So right now, I think the bottom line is to help everyone understand you have what it takes. And sometimes it's hidden deep though, and that can be a problem. It takes effort every day to be an effective leader. And if we get lazy, if we aren't putting that effort in, it shows. We can only hide for so long before people really understand we're not doing our best. We have to do what it takes every day. So I'd like to mention that we do have a program at Leadership Beach for those that feel like, I want to learn, I want to grow, I want to develop more as a leader. It's the 100-day launch to leadership effectiveness. And in 100 days, you will learn more than leaders with years of experience know. And it will increase your effectiveness in ways that will benefit your career for years to come. So thank you today for joining. I appreciate you taking time out of your incredibly busy day. And I hope that you found many of this useful, and I would love to hear your questions and get some feedback.
Thank you so much. That was great. One question for you. Which of the competencies, I know you said all 4 are necessary, but which one do you feel helps the leader to become that person everybody wants to work for?
Mm-hmm. In my opinion, it's understanding relational competence. If people don't know you care, they're not going to respect your intelligence. They're not going to respect your technical expertise. You have to build relationship with people to have that give and take, that they want to give extra effort to what you need to get accomplished as a leader.
And leadership, that's a really big responsibility. From everything you presented today, I'm thinking, wow, that is a big responsibility just on the leader themselves.
It is. It's huge. And to understand that without the support of our team and peers and executives, we're not going to get very far. We're going to get on that slippery slope of derailment and failure pretty quick. And so it's understanding what is most crucial to developing effectiveness. And in my opinion, it starts with relationship and having the social skills that you can refine with time, but knowing where to begin is most important.
We did get a comment in here. This was great. The personality traits chart for the light side and the dark side is a good tool to keep on hand to check yourself. Some of the participants want to know, would it be possible to share the slides with the attendees today? Okay, great. Perfect. Perfect. Okay. What can leaders do to develop their relationship leadership style? What are some of the best traits?
Well, it's understanding what your leadership style is and being willing to, if it isn't in that relational realm, that you might fall into a regulating or reserve style, it's just owning that and beginning to look at what do I need to do different to move into that secure space. Part of the issue with moving into a relational leadership style is understanding what brought me to this place. Did I experience trauma in relationship that I just really don't like them? I'm uncomfortable in them. Then we have to deal with the trauma first. And that may be with a therapist, it may be with a coach. It just depends on the level of what we're dealing with. But you can't really move into a relational space until you deal with the pain around why you don't like relationships in the first place. And it helps a lot. Just self-awareness is key. Understand who you are, why you are, and how you got to be where you are so that you know how to move forward in choosing the direction that you want to go with your career.
Thank you. And how is your leadership model different from all the others that are out there?
There are several reasons. Number one, it's behavior-based. I feel like we get a lot of just LinkedIn, all the articles that we see, all the stuff that's on the internet about, ideas and theories of leadership. And it really comes down to what are you doing? And our program is behavior-based. People need to be seeing you doing the things that demonstrate effectiveness and helping leaders understand this is what it looks like to be effective. This is how people perceive you as a leader. If you're not perceived as a leader, no one is going to follow you. You have to look back and see, is anyone following me? Do they understand what my role is here and how I'm functioning in it? And if that's not good, then we need to deal with that. It's going to improve your effectiveness just to be honest with yourself about how people perceive you. So that's a vital part of it. The relational leadership piece, though, that's the part that most coaches, leadership development programs, they don't put the people piece into it. You have the emotional intelligence programs and things like that. But again, like I said, a lot of that involves mind reading. I'm supposed to know how you feel just by looking at you. And that just isn't the case. It isn't like that. And so we have to be able to understand what matters when it comes to relating to other people, our social function. The technical piece, that's kind of in your hands to learn, to grow. And as far as the intellectual piece, we've been told that whatever IQ we're born with, that's what we're stuck with. And you can develop the ability to learn. You can develop the ability to take in new information. There's a difference between being smart and being educated. There's a lot of really smart people out there, but without that extra layer of learning and growth and development, we're kind of stuck and we're kind of stagnant at just being a kind of a street smart kind of person. We need both pieces of it to be especially effective. And so it's giving the whole picture of leadership that I feel like is what sets us apart, that it isn't just go form relationships, go be socially functional, show them how smart you are, go learn things and be able to teach other people. It's all of it together, which is complex and a little bit overwhelming when you first start out and difficult when you try to do it by yourself.
Well, it definitely makes sense. I did get another question in, actually a couple.
Okay.
First of all, I want to thank you for your presentation. What is your take on growth mindset as part of being an effective leader everyone wants to work for?
Yes. A growth mindset is about being open and open to experience, being willing to learn. That closed mindset it's stagnant. We don't have opportunities to see what could be when we have a closed mindset. I feel like the growth mindset is that open opportunity, and without that, we are on that slippery slope of derailment and failure. And I feel like that closed mindset is what happens to a lot of leaders. They want to come in and they want to have all the answers, or they want to have this power, or they want to demonstrate how smart they are. And it isn't about me as a leader. It's about us as a team. And I feel like the growth mindset really is part of that ability to be that we instead of me.
Another question in. How long did it take for your husband? So how long did it take Brad to actually get his 100 scores?
He, some of it is the person. He has a personality that he's warm and he's engaging, and that helps a lot. So it didn't take him very long. The results that we have that I'm sharing with people right now are just his last 2 years, but he's been getting really great feedback for a long time. It was the refining process that, as I learned things in school about this is important and this is what the research shows, and he would start to incorporate that has taken him to a whole new level.
Wow. Great presentation. Thank you for the NFL coach analogy. That was awesome. I was going to say that as well. I thought the comparison was great. I really enjoyed. Yeah. It was great because you brought us from learning about each of the different competencies and then showing us what the personalities are really like, because a lot of us would actually know some of the coaches you were referring to and what we see on the field, and we're wondering what are they really saying.
Yes. And I feel like it's the NFL is a really cool example, because surprisingly, they are leading the way right now in reforming leadership styles. When you look at Miami's head coach, you look at the Vikings head coach, Vikings fan here, and the difference this is making in the team. So as a Vikings fan, Zimmer was the coach last year, and he's just this hard-nosed dude that just no excuses. I don't want to hear it, just get out there and win. And they have a new coach now, Coach O'Connell, and he is much more player focused and supportive, and yet they're much more competitive. I mean, they were the winner of the NFC North this year, and they've been in the gutter for years. And so it just is the NFL is just such a great example right now of what happens when you have good leadership.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, okay, another one came in. As part of a team, are you supposed to enhance your leader to adopt a stance on leadership, or is it totally his responsibility, or does it mean that the director, manager, in this case, lacks the leadership?
I understand the question, and I think we can only do what we can do. Leaders must be self-aware. They must see what's working and what's not working, and want to do better. It's kind of like that old psychology joke with a light bulb. How many psychologists does it take to change a light bulb? One, but the light bulb has to want to change. And so it's that mindset that we as a society are telling leaders, we want more, we want better. The pandemic really raised the bar on leaders, and workers have found out that they have power now. I can work from anywhere. I can have balance in my life or alignment in my life of work and personal, and I don't have to be sitting in an office with someone watching me all the time to get my job done. And leaders don't really know how to respond to that. And so it's acknowledging this gap that we have right now in what do workers want with what do leaders want and what do organizations want, and understanding it's very different. Everything is different and the world is different. And how do we respond to that? That's part of demonstrating intellectual competence. I understand that things are different. I need to go learn something, develop my technical competence so that I can respond to it better. As far as the dysfunction that happens in organizations, it's a very careful line to walk. When you have a leader that you would like to influence, of how honest can you be? That depends on the psychological safety in your group with your leader. How well have they developed the relationship that you can have these honest conversations with them? Unfortunately, in talking about the director, the manager, the employee, if the director is dysfunctional, there's a good chance the manager is going to be dysfunctional, which is going to create an environment that the worker does not thrive in. And that's where we start to see mental health issues. That's where we start to see burnout and long-term misery in people because things just aren't changing. Things aren't getting better. In those situations, sometimes you do have to go find a new job. It's in your best interest to take care of yourself and work in a healthy environment.
So did you see one competency over another over the last couple of years where people were working remote and the leadership, they really weren't in a environment together in a meeting or at the workplace like we have been? I mean, there was a lot of discontent.
Yes, yes. And so much of that happened because either leaders were unavailable, disconnected, they didn't talk to their people. They felt like they were at home struggling, trying to balance the needs of their family, find toilet paper, just all the things that it was like, oh my gosh, this is hard and this is scary. And then their leader was absent. They just were off in their own world, or they were so micromanaging. We're gonna have a call every day at this time. I need to see your dot green on the system that tells me when you're online or not. And the pressure that people experienced in that time was incredible. The leaders that were able to just get done what needs to get done. We need to stay productive. We need to meet goals. We need to get things done. Those people loved working from home and have found, I know on Brad's team, he has people who are remote full time and he has people in the office. And the people that were in the office when the pandemic first started were like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to get back to the office. And within a very short time, they were like, I'm good. I don't need to go back to the office anymore. That he was able to navigate that change and help everyone stay on task, help everyone feel safe. They started a Friday fun meeting, and 9 o'clock Friday morning, everyone would call in and they would just talk about life and what was happening, and share things that you would have over that water cooler discussion. And they still have it, even though everything has calmed down and people can go back to the office if they want to. They're still having that Friday meeting. He had people call in when they were on vacation just because they enjoyed that time with their team so much. So there are some super powerful ways to help people feel connected that really aren't very hard.
Yeah, the touch points are very important.
They really are. They really are.
Definitely.
In talking about relational leadership, Dr. John Bowlby is the founder of attachment theory. And he said, we are relational beings from birth to death. And we can try to deny that, we can try to squash it down, but it really is true. We need each other. And throughout time, if we didn't have people, we didn't live very long, way back in the day. And so understanding how important relationship is the first step in really building your effectiveness as a leader.
Okay, another question came in. Do you think these ideals apply or should apply across countries, languages, cultures, or is this unique to the US?
Because we're all humans, it really isn't unique to the US. There's been research around the world on this, and even in cultures which have less emotion or seem to be less relationally focused, they still need that person that they count on to feel okay in the world. They did research with soldiers in the Israeli army and found that leaders, the commanders in the army that were more reserved style or avoidant, that negatively impacted the emotional well-being and mental health of the soldiers. The ones that were controlling and just micromanaging, again, negative impact on the soldiers. The ones that could present themselves as commander, but in a caring, supportive way, those were the soldiers that thrived the most in the Israeli army. In Israel, you're conscripted. When you go at 18, you're going into the army. And so they had this fabulous pool of participants to be able to study because everyone has to go into the army.
We just have time for one more question. I'm glad you brought it up. That is the reason why engagement survey rolled up. This leadership culture starts from the top. If you have strong leadership at the top, you establish a culture that preemanates through the different levels. Would you agree on that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, this was great. Thank you so much for coming to our ISM community. I say community because we have so many different people that attend these programs from all over the US and sometimes from other countries as well. So thank you for bringing this really, really important topic to our group today. And I will be sending out the recording for today a little bit later today. And I'll also send out a link to Andrea's website. That way, if you would like to get more information or find out about the other program she was talking about, you can definitely touch base with her at that point.
Great. Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so everybody, we'll say goodbye for now. And, we'll be emailing everybody a little bit later. But thank you again for joining us.